The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered released earlier this year, which gave me the chance to finally finish the game for the first time ever. In doing so, I joined a lot of factions, some great and some stinky. In this video, we're going to rank each faction in Oblivion to see which one was the best. Before we get started ranking every faction, there do need to be some ground rules. I'm only counting joinable factions, the ones that show up on your factions bar in the character menu, of which there are 14 total. Some factions exist outside of this, such as the Black Bows and the Imperial Legion, for example, but you can never actually join those, so they don't count. I'll be basing my ranking off of 4 main criteria: how interesting or fun the questline is, how attached I became to the faction and the characters within it, how useful or awesome the rewards are for doing the faction, and a general vibe check. Just how cool is that faction? With those ground rules out of the way, here is every faction in Oblivion ranked. Oh, and spoilers, of course. Now, the first few entries are what I would call minor factions. They're ones that don't really have a long quest line to them, some of which are barely really a faction anyway, so that's why they're going to be here at the bottom of the list. Starting off with number 14 is the Order of the Dragon. This is a faction that shows up on your menu once you beat the main story. It's really hardly a faction. I mean, the reward you get once you get this is after a few days, you can go back to the Imperial City and get the Imperial Dragon armor, which is basically just an Imperial Legion armor, but with, you know, it's like black with some gold accents on it. It's pretty cool, I suppose, but it's not even really that great of an armor set, especially if you're using a character that is like a light armor user. So it's kind of whatever. I would consider it being as a part of like the main quest, like the main quest line. It's how you get this faction, but there's another faction later down this list that fits that bill a little bit better. So unfortunately, as cool as being the Champion of Cyrodiil is, and as cool as Order of the Dragon is as a faction, it's barely a faction, so it makes the list just because it's on the menu, but it's got to be number 14. Number 13. Blackwood Company. This company is the one that you get whenever you do the Fighters Guild questline. You join this for a mission or two to find out how exactly the Blackwood Company is stealing all of the jobs and the contracts basically from the Fighters Guild. That's pretty much the only reason why it's going to be higher than the Order of the Dragon. It's actually got a relevance to another questline, and you do actually join the faction. You do actually meet some of the people in there. You go inside the building where the Blackwood Company goes to, and the quest that actually is relevant for the Blackwood Company is kind of interesting. I do like what they do with it and play with it a little bit, but there's not really a reward. Like, the reward is just being able to progress in the Fighters Guild. You don't really get anything outside of that. Like, I think you do get a Blackwood Company like shield or like weapons or something like that. You get to see what the hiss sap is for the first time, but outside of that, there's not really any reward for it, and it's really just used as a way to progress the Fighters Guild quest with one interesting quest line in there that I think is worth doing. Outside of that, it's not really much of anything. You'll forget that you even joined it, and that's why it's going to be number 13. Number 12, the Mythic Dawn. This one's similar to the Blackwood Company in that it's a temporary faction. Your goal is to join the Mythic Dawn Company, infiltrate their base, and figure out what's going on with all of their secrets and their leader, Mankar Cameron, and see what he's doing. But you don't even have to join it. You can just run and gun inside and just blitz your way through. So joining is actually completely optional, unlike the Blackwood Company, which you do have to join to finish the Fighters Guild questline, which makes it interesting. The only reason why I put it higher is because, like the Blackwood Company, its only real purpose is to progress the story, and I just find it a little bit more interesting to join basically the group of the main villains of the entire game for a little bit, rather than like the Blackwood Company, who's like kind of an antagonist for the Fighters Guild. The main quest, joining the main quest cult members who are worshiping a Daedra Lord, is way more interesting to me than just joining the Blackwood Companies for one mission. But again, no real reward, very short, probably not going to remember it that much. That's why it's going to be number 12. Number 11, Knights of the Thorn. I think the way you get this questline is pretty interesting. You walk up to Shadenhall, and you can find a Oblivion gate nearby where a bunch of the Shadenhall guards are just kind of standing outside, and you're wondering, okay, well, what's exactly going on here? You go inside and you find out that the Count's son is inside along with his little cronies who all thought that they could go inside and get glory by taking out the Oblivion gate by themselves. However, once you go inside, you realize that it's not that easy, and you end up finding a bunch of people dead, and you have to go find the Count's son and take out that Oblivion gate. I think my main problem with this one is that I kind of find Farwell and his little gang kind of annoying in multiple ways. I think from a story standpoint, they're just a bunch of young kids that got people killed, and by the time that the quest resolves, if everyone's still alive, who's still left possibly to be alive, they don't really face much repercussion for it, which is a little bit disappointing. Your reward is that you get to join them, I guess, which, like, I don't really want to join your band of wannabe guards or whatever. But also, from a gameplay perspective, you're basically just taking out an Oblivion gate, and on the flip side, you also have to try to keep this guy alive, because if you don't, you can still resolve the quest, but you can't even join the faction if the Count's son dies. So it's kind of annoying in that sense. It's better to do early than it is late. But so by the time that I did it in my most recent playthrough, it was kind of late and all of them died. So it was like, okay, nothing much you can do here. So I think that's probably why I'm going to put it low, is I don't really like the faction itself, because I don't have an interest in the Champion of Cyrodiil being a part of this like wannabe group of warriors, and I find it kind of annoying to try to keep him alive while closing an Oblivion gate. I will say that the reward at the end is pretty nice, whether you have the Count's son alive or not. You get to choose between two different items which are uniquely enchanted. You either get the Staff of Indaris, which damages strength and shock damage, or you get the Thorn Blade, which is a unique sword that looks pretty awesome, I would say, and has an enchantment that disintegrates armor. I actually used it in one of my earlier playthroughs in the past, and it's not the best weapon in the world, but I think it's really cool looking, and it's a pretty neat reward to get, so I almost always pick the Thorn Blade just because I think it's cool. Number 10. Knights of the White Stallion. Knights of the White Stallion is kind of similar to Knights of the Thorn in that it's just a small little faction that you can join based off completing 2 simple quests. You have to go to Leyawiin and talk to the Count, and you'll find out that there is an orc that's been hanging around the castle talking about being a knight and wanting to become a full-fledged knight. I think the only reason why I like this one more than the Knights of the Thorn is that I find Mazoga the orc a little bit more compelling and likable than Knights of the Thorn's Farwell and his band of cronies. See, Mazoga just kind of wants to be a knight, and she has these false ideas of what being a knight is and follows them to the letter, and you have to kind of have this push and pull of helping her become a knight and realizing where she's coming from, and she's kind of abrasive, but it's kind of in an endearing way once you find out where she's coming from. And by the end, you both become Knights of the White Stallion, and she's happy. She gets to get her dream fulfilled, which is a positive thing. She's not an insufferable character. The other thing that you do get is you get the key to the White Stallion Lodge, which is a nice little place that you can rest up in, but more importantly is that you can now, forever after that, sell black bows to the Count of Leyawiin for gold, which there's a few different things like that in Oblivion, where once you complete a quest line, you can sell a specific item to a specific character in order to get more gold from it than if you were to sell it just straight up, which I think is fine. I like it. If you ever encounter black bows, it's just a way to make a little bit extra money, especially in the early game. It's fine. Not the most amazing rewards or anything like that, but because I like Mazoga more than the Knights of the Thorn, I put it up just 1 spot higher. Number 9. Order of the Virtuous Blood. This is the last of the smaller factions that you can join in Oblivion. To get this faction quest, you have to go to the Temple District of the Imperial City with a decent fame rating, which basically just means, like, go do some quests, go do the main quest. Eventually, you'll have enough fame that this will trigger. When you go there, Ralza Norvalo, the wife of Gillen Norvalo, one of the Order's members, will approach you and tell you that you need to meet with them. The whole questline is about this order that's going out and trying to hunt down vampires within the Imperial City. However, as with a lot of quests in Oblivion, it's not that simple, and so there's a couple different things that happen, some twists, some turns, who's really a vampire, who's really not, that you have to uncover. It's kind of a little mini mystery quest line. The reward at the end is twofold. You get the Ring of Sunfire, which is a ring that resists disease and reflects spells. Not too shabby. And you get the ability to sell vampire dust for 250 gold, which is way more than you would get if you just sold it at an apothecary. It doesn't take too long. It's not too invasive. It's kind of one of those quests that I like because it is a quest that just distracts you for a little bit. Like, you're just running around doing your thing in the Imperial City, doing a main quest, going to the shops, whatever you may be doing, and then this lady walks up to you and just takes you on this ride to these vampire hunters, and now all of a sudden you're solving a vampire mystery. And I just kind of think it was fun. It's a nice little quest line, and it's a good encapsulation of what a minor, small, mini side quest should be in Oblivion. And now, with the remaining top 8, we're getting into the actual full-fledged quest lines, the full-fledged factions that have whole quests associated with them. Out of all the 8 major factions in Oblivion, the absolute worst and number 8 on my list of all factions is the Fighters Guild. This quest is awful. Honestly, I flirted with putting it at the absolute bottom of this list simply because I disliked it so much. But because of the rewards that you get throughout it, because it's an actual quest line, there's actual characters, you actually feel like you're part of the Fighters Guild, kinda a little bit. I feel like it was only fair to put it at higher on the list, but still at the bottom in terms of all the other major faction quest lines. The problem I have with it is that it just takes way too long. It's not that compelling. It's really just, at the start, you're just completing contracts where you have to do some basic quests that are very generic, really not all that interesting. They try to mix things up a little bit. Like, you got this lady you have to do a contract for who has rats in her basement, but you're not actually going to kill rats. You're going to kill the mountain lion that's killing her rats because she likes her rats. And then later you can find out like who has been tampering with it and letting the mountain lion in, which is like kind of interesting, I guess, but like, it's not that interesting. It's also a quest line that is way more beneficial to do if you do it early rather than later, because by the time you do it late in the game, some of Oblivion's leveling problems start to show a little bit more, and the rewards you get for it aren't that great. I also never felt like I was a true guild member. Like, for half the quest line, you are operating outside of the guild in the first place. And the first half of the quest line where you're operating within the guild, you're not really doing anything besides talking to the leader of that guild hall and then doing some contracts, getting some money, and then moving on. Like, it just never felt like I was part of a guild, part of a team. It just felt like I was more of a mercenary, which maybe that was the point, but I didn't feel like that was the point. And by the time you become the guild master, it's, I don't know, it kind of feels like I'm not really a guild master. It kind of feels like your dark elf buddy who you help out throughout the whole quest line is the real guild master. So it is absolutely the worst faction in Oblivion of the major factions. Number 7, the arena. Let me get this out first. I think the arena is really cool the first time you do it. The idea of becoming a gladiator and fighting into battles one-on-one with the opponent yellow team, winning glory, winning money, winning fame, it's all really cool. However, as soon as you're done with it, and I think even in your first playthrough near the end, you start to feel the fatigue of it a little bit. I think it's a little too long because all you're really doing for most of it is going to talk to Owen, going out to go fight in the arena, and then going back to talk to Owen to get your reward. And that's the entire quest line for almost like the entirety of it. You can kind of do a side part, which isn't really part of the arena quest line, but you can go talk to the Great Prince, who's the current champion of the arena, grand champion, and do his quest line and find out what's going on with him and his heritage. But that is considered a separate side quest. You don't have to be a part of the arena to do it. And it actually is almost beneficial to not do it, because doing so means that he just doesn't fight you, so you don't even get the satisfaction of becoming grand champion by actually earning it by fighting the Great Prince. You just kind of win. So, but then if you don't do that, you kill the Great Prince anyway, but he never finds out what his heritage is, so you can't do that side quest. So it's kind of a lose-lose. I don't really like that they did that. The reward is basically just money. I mean, at the very end, you do get a super fan who will follow you around, this iconic guy with the yellow hair, but he can die really easy and he doesn't really do anything for you. He just kind of walks around and stares at you and freaks you out sometimes because you're not prepared for him to be right behind you in certain spots. I do think it's better than the Fighters Guild quest just because it is, at least in its simplicity, it's a lot quicker to get through. It also does make me feel a little bit more like I'm part of the team because Owen, you can see him start to recognize you more and more as you win more and more, and he starts to kind of root for you in a way. You also have yellow team members and a blue team member in the arena that you can talk to, which is pretty cool, and you can kind of feel like The yellow team is a real enemy because the girl in there, the Nord lady, is so rude. She's just unbelievably rude for no reason. And the blue team guy is really, really nice until you kill the Grey Prince. But up until then, he's really, really nice. And you even get to fight with Pork Chop, the boar, which is super cool. I love Pork Chop. And that makes me feel a lot more like I'm actually part of the arena rather than just some mercenary that's doing jobs for them. So I think that's why it goes higher. But again, on subsequent playthroughs, it's kind of a drag to get through the arena. And I think that's why I got to put it at number 7. It's just really doing the same thing over and over again. Number 6, the Mages Guild. This is another one that's kind of tedious. And I'm starting to see a pattern here that a lot of the worst factions in Oblivion are tedious. The reason why it's super tedious, especially on multiple playthroughs, is that you have to get a recommendation from every single guild hall in the Mages Guild across all of Cyrodiil, which is just, it takes so long. Your whole goal is to become a part of the Arcane University, and that's when the questline really starts, and when you can start rising up the ranks a little bit more. But until then, you're waiting to get into the Arcane University and doing all these smaller quests across all the towns of Oblivion. And again, it's another one of those that on first playthrough, it's not that bad because I do think that some of the quests in those individual guild halls are kind of interesting, and you really do start to learn about the people in there. And later on, when you get to the Arcane University and you start that quest line, you will be going back to some of those guild halls, so it's not like you're doing it for nothing. I get that it connects the story a little bit more because, especially, spoiler alert, I already said that earlier in the video, but one of the guild halls gets attacked and burned down, and it's pretty awesome because you have now already become attached to that guild hall in some small way. You know, you might not love all the people there, but you know who they are, and you've done a quest line for them, and you've walked around that town. So it's interesting to see that we go back and actually have an impact on those people's lives, and you see stuff happen to those people. But on multiple playthroughs, it's just so annoying to have to do it every single time and do those quests over and over and over just to get to the Arcane University. It is super worth it because the rewards you get are insane. The Archmage's room, once you become the Archmage, is awesome, especially because it has that chest that will duplicate ingredients for you, so you'll never run out of a key rare ingredient that you need. That's just amazing. When you first become a member of the Arcane University, you get a staff that you can put pretty much any enchantment that you want on it. I usually do a soul trap enchantment on it, which is just amazing, so you can always soul trap your enemies and keep your soul gems refilled up. And then also you get access to spell crafting and enchantments on your weapons and armor, which is just a must. Like you basically at higher difficulties have to do the Arcane University unless you go do some of the like DLC stuff that lets you enchant outside of the guild. But if you're going to play like vanilla Oblivion, you've got to do the Mages Guild because you've got to get that enchantment so you can put whatever powerful enchantments you need to put on there if you're going to play at higher difficulties, because you will need it. I think just overall, as good as the rewards are, I think the story is kind of mediocre. I do like that you do have some impact, and I think that it's cool that getting the recommendations does matter in a small sense. But overall, it's not even one that I am going to remember that much. Like when I think back to factions in Oblivion and which stories really, really stick with me, the Mages Guild isn't going to be one of those. So that's why it's going to be a little bit lower on this list at number 6. Number 5, the Blades. This is the main quest faction. Earlier, number 14 at the very bottom of the list was the Order of the Dragon, which is the last faction you get from the main quest. And like I said, that one is at the bottom because I thought that there was a different faction that fits the main quest moniker a little bit better, and that's the Blades. You join it really early on in the main quest, and it's the one out of the two that I think actually makes you feel like you're part of them, because you actually go to Cloud Ruler Temple, you talk to Joffrey, you meet Martin Septim, you're going back and forth, you're meeting Boris, you're doing a mission with Boris in the Blades. So you can get an armor from the Blades and become sort of a Blades member. You can learn training from different Blades members. It's an important part of the game. It's an important part of the main story. And I really feel like out of almost all of the quest lines, almost all of the factions outside of the ones that are above it, I think this one is really, really good at making you feel like you're part of the Blades. The problem is that the rewards and the story are kind of all over the place. The story is just kind of meh. The main story of Oblivion's not that compelling. It's not that crazy. That's kind of a problem that Elder Scrolls has in general. And then the rewards are like, anything that you get in the main quest, so I kind of don't know how to rate that very much. But I will say that I do think becoming the hero of Kvatch, becoming the champion of Cyrodiil, closing the Great Gates in the main story, being a part of the Blades like that, Bruma becoming like a second home, you get a statue in Bruma because of what you do in that quest line. It really does make you feel like a part of that world, as like a part of that faction, and that's why it's going to be number 5. Number 4, Knights of the Nine. The first DLC faction quest that we put on this list. The Knights of the Nine is a pretty stellar quest when it comes to the reward. The armor and weapons you get for the Knights of the Nine are leveled with your character, so as long as you keep putting them down onto the pedestal that you'll get them from, it'll reset the level to be with yours. So it's a really powerful armor set, especially if you get it early on in the game. It also has a lot of lore behind it. I really like the Knights of the Nine lore. I like that you go on this pilgrimage at the beginning. You start meeting people who are going on the pilgrimage with you. Eventually, by the end, when you're trying to fight Umaril at his dungeon, you have this basically like army that you've created who are behind you and storm the place with you, and by the end they're all cheering you on and saying huzzah, huzzah, you know, you're the Knight of the Nine. It's really cool. I do feel like you're a part of this pilgrimage. You're part of this Knights of the Nine quest line. You are meeting the past Knights of the Nine and learning about their story. You're letting them rest. You're completing their mission for them. And then you get this little motley crew who join you along the way and help you out. I think it's really, really fun, really, really cool. And it doesn't overstay its welcome. You can do it in like one play session. I think the only knock I would give it is that if you do it a little bit too late, it can be a little bit not great, because by that time, if you're like at a higher level character, then the Knights of the Nine equipment is kind of bad, especially because by the time you do that, you probably have already enchanted your own stuff that's just far more powerful. So doing it to the earlier mid game, I think is best. Number 3, the Court of Madness. This one's kind of unfair because the Court of Madness is the faction you join during the best DLC in all of Oblivion and one of the best DLCs of all time, the Shivering Isles. The Court of Madness just has probably the most colorful cast of characters in any of the factions, period. Which, I mean, have you seen the Shivering Isles? That makes a lot of sense. The rewards in it are just insane. The Staff of Sheogorath, becoming the Daedric Prince himself, getting the entire land of the Shivering Isles basically to yourself. Some of the quest lines in it are insane. Like, some of the most creative quests in all of Oblivion are found in the Shivering Isles, which this isn't a ranking of the Shivering Isles as a DLC, it's a ranking of the Court of Madness, but it's all mixed in together because especially even if you just look at the main quest for the Court of Madness, those quests are awesome. And you start to have to pick a side because at the very beginning of the Shivering Isles, you have to pick between, you know, the Land of Dementia or the Land of Mana, and you start to kind of pick a side between the, like, Golden Warrior Ladies and the Dark Warrior Ladies. I forget what their names were. I'm sorry. Comment down below. Correct me. And you start having to make decisions. You start pulling one way, pulling the other way. You meet these people. You form relationships. It's fun. It's awesome. It's quirky. It's kooky. It's perfect. It's awesome. It's just perfect. It's perfect. But the reason why it's not number 1 is because the 2 that are above it do everything that the Court of Madness does, but just a little bit better. Number 2, the Thieves Guild. If you made it this far into the video, you probably knew that it was a toss-up here between the Thieves Guild or the Dark Brotherhood being number 1 or 2. For me, as much as I like the Thieves Guild, it's going to be the number 2 spot. I think one of my favorite things about the Thieves Guild isn't even the questline itself, it's the smaller things you have to do the questline. To progress in the Thieves Guild, you have to go and just steal stuff and sell them to a fence, which sounds pretty simple, but the amount of money, the amount of value you have to sell to the fence increases over time. So you end up having to increase the stakes. You have to start robbing people who are a little bit richer. You have to go into these people's homes, take more valuable things, and sell them to the right fence who can sell it for more money. It kind of gets you involved in this network, makes you feel like you're part of this little group that is kind of underground, hiding, and going and stealing, doing the Robin Hood thing. I think that's really cool. And unlike the, say, Fighters Guild, where you have to do these contracts in order to progress the main story, thieving is pretty free and open. You can steal from anybody. You don't have to do a specific contract that takes you down to this specific cave to go do a thing or whatever. You can just have free reign. You can go steal whatever you want from anybody, and As long as it's not another guild member, it'll count, which I think just makes the game, for a brief moment, open up into a completely different style of game, which I think is pretty cool. Now, the guildmate part is probably the weakest part of it, and why I think I put the Thieves Guild at number 2 instead of number 1. You get to know a few of the guild members, but the most important one is that you get really intimately involved with the Gray Fox himself, the leader of the Thieves Guild. And I think that was really, really cool. I wish that we got a little bit more with our side characters. There are some characters in there that you do kind of build up a story with, but the Gray Fox is really the key here, and I think that's what makes this Thieves Guild so compelling, because the Gray Fox is sort of like the main player in the Thieves Guild, and you become really, really intimately knowledgeable with him and get to know him a lot, and you talk to him a lot, you do a lot of quests for him. I just wish, unlike the Dark Brotherhood, I think that the outer lying characters around the leader could have been done a little bit better. The final mission is also freaking intense, man. Like, having to go steal the Elder Scroll in the middle of the Imperial City was freaking awesome, and it really was stressing me out because my character was not built for stealth. I had to do a lot to try to prep for this mission, and it was still pretty tough for me. I'm bad at stealth anyway, but I thought it was really fun. It felt really compelling, even though it was like one of the last quests that I did. There's other examples, like when the Imperial Guards start bursting through the waterfront and trying to track down the Gray Fox and interfering with the Thieves Guild. I really felt like it was real. Like, the Thieves Guild is a real thing that is affecting the Imperial City, and the Imperial Guards are trying to track you down, and you're trying to be undercover and trying not to get caught. I thought it was a really cool. I really felt like I was part of the Thieves Guild. And of course, the reward is pretty awesome because you get to become the Gray Fox. And not only do you get the mask with like some buffs on it, it works how the lore says. As soon as you put it on, people don't even know who you are. You are just the Gray Fox. As soon as I got the Gray Fox helmet, I put it on, and everyone around me started freaking out, and the guards tried to arrest me, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe they actually thought this through, and it works how it should. It's pretty awesome. I really like that, and I think the Thieves Guild is just super creative and deserves my number 2 spot. But the number 1 spot has to be the Dark Brotherhood. I mean, could it have been anything else? The Dark Brotherhood is probably one of the best quest lines and factions in all of Bethesda game history, especially the one in Oblivion, where all of the quests are so compelling and interesting. Getting a contract to kill somebody is one thing. You get to play a little mini game of Hitman in your Oblivion game, but you also get to have extra bonuses if you kill them a certain way or fulfill certain conditions. I always think about the one where you have to go to, I think it's Bruma, and there's a guy where if you will get extra money if you are able to sneak into his house and untie this mounted head of some beast or whatever. I can't remember I think it's a Minotaur, and it falls down on him and kills him that way, and then you have to sneak your way out without his bodyguard finding you. And that's just one example of like a really creative way to create a assassin questline in Oblivion with interesting ways that you can off your target. The characters around the Brotherhood are also amazing. Like, all of them have such different personalities, and you start to become attached to certain ones, and you build relationships and bonds with them. You really start to feel like a brotherhood because you start asking them about your contract. You see which ones have information, which ones can help you out, which ones can tell you about certain things which will help you complete your contract. And then of course it all comes crashing down at the end when you have to go and kill them all, which just hurts so bad because you have to do that, and it just hurts so bad because you've been talking to them for so long and you have been building that relationship, and you have to do what's best for the Brotherhood, which was really unfortunate, but I think made that quest all the better. While the rewards are really great for stealth characters, they're not anything to super write home about, but I think that that's more than made up for by the story of the Dark Brotherhood, by how it makes you feel a part of the Brotherhood, how emotional it can kind of get once you establish relationships with these people in the Dark Brotherhood. It's just an excellent quest line and is the perfect example of the best that Bethesda has to offer in terms of faction quest lines, and that's why the Dark Brotherhood is the best faction in Oblivion. And that's my list for the best factions in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Let me know what you think. Do you think that there was a faction on here that was too high, too low? Give me your list down below. This was just a quicker video I want to put out because I haven't really seen too many people do a ranking of all 14 of the joinable factions in Oblivion, and thought I'd throw my hat in the ring and let you guys know what my thoughts were, and I'd love to hear yours. But there is a bigger video about Oblivion coming because I have discovered in the course of this most recent playthrough a major flaw in Oblivion that I just have to talk about. So if that's a video you want to see, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell now so you get notified when that video drops. It'll be dropping very, very soon. And until then, I've been Ashton Lavelle, and I hope you have a good day. Peace.